Here's what's coming up on January Conversations with Archbishop Joseph Kurtz. The Synod in Rome on the new evangelization. The Archbishop provides details on what it was like to be a part of it. David Such of St. Bernadette Parish talks with the Archbishop about the upcoming men's conference. Archbishop Kurtz's teaching segment on the final message from the Rome Synod. The conversations for January start right now. Well, first of all, welcome to Conversations and welcome to 2013. Archbishop Kurtz, it's good to see you in the brand new year. Clean slate.
Happy New Year to you, Reed.
Archbishop, you made a trip to Rome last fall, and I want to devote a good deal of our program here to talk about the Synod on new evangelization. And first of all, just tell me what the experience was like.
It was a wonderful experience. First of all, it was 3 weeks that I was in Rome. There were altogether about 250 bishops from pretty much every continent in the world, Reed. And in most of our sessions, our Holy Father was present. So the room for the Synod had, along with those who were hearing, had probably about 350 people, but 250 delegates.
I'm just curious, did the Pope listen mostly, or would he
No,
involve himself?
Well, what he did was, at the beginning, he gave a homily in prayer, and he listened. I mean, part of his role was really to listen throughout the session, but in a very special way. At the end of the day, after the formal speeches from 6 to 7, any one of us could hit our buzzer and ask to speak. And at this point, I think our Holy Father's stance was to be part of listening, because the Synod, coming from the Second Vatican Council, so now 50 years old, is meant to be a participation of the bishops in the governance of the Church. And so our Holy Father is in a listening mode precisely because he wants to be able to, in a sense, hear and learn, as we all do, from others. And there's always a vital topic, as you said earlier. This time it was the new evangelization. And as we look over the next 10, 20, 30 years, what are the things in the universal Church and in our own particular church in Louisville that will mark that reaching out and announcing again the good news of Jesus Christ?
Now, this was a very busy 21 days for you. I was impressed that you had the time and took the time to blog for all of us.
Well, you know what? It was good. It was a very good thing. In fact, I often think I was never in the practice of having a diary or of even journaling, and people, when they go on vacations, do it. I found this to be very good because it gave me a chance in the morning to reflect and take stock on what I was experiencing. And then, of course, through the miracle of the internet, I was able to share some things with others. And people were very kind. Many said that they not only read the blogs, but they even looked forward to them. So I was happy for that experience.
After all the presentations, you broke into small groups, I understand.
We did.
And you had a role there. You were a relator.
The relator. I learned a new word. I thought it was good. Well, it's basically a fancy Latin word for secretary.
Okay.
One of the most important parts of the Synod was the fact that besides the large group, there were 12 small groups. Many of the propositions or proposals that are given to our Holy Father at the end came because of the roll-up-the-sleeves work of the small groups. Of the 12, 4 of them were of English-speaking participants, and each one was called upon, each group. The first thing we did was we elected a moderator who basically ran the meeting, and for us it was Cardinal Napier from Durban in South Africa, a very, very fine person. And there were about 25 people who were participants. I was elected the relator, which is the recorder. And so it was a work.
You had to listen closely.
Very much so. To listen, summarize, and perhaps the highlight was I reflected a summary to the participants, but then had a chance to give a 10-minute presentation to the body of delegates, and that included our Holy Father. So it was a privilege to be able to summarize the work that we did as a small group.
I'm just curious, you are very technology-minded. How did you keep your notes?
Well, you know what? I actually took hand notes, but then would type them. I used my phone and the little recorder to be able to dictate them, and then to redo the typing, and was able to share the notes with the group.
So you
and
could
then
distribute
finally,
them pretty easily.
Yeah. And in fact, it's interesting to say that these notes became part of the public document, so that they will be part of the public record of the Synod itself, as well as the interventions that each of the delegates made.
From a practical perspective now, what happens next? I know there are some major directions that have already emerged from the Synod.
It's probably good for us, because sometimes we get eager to say, let's get moving on this, and there's a part of that I'll mention. But looking at the synods in the past, Reed, what often happens, and I think will happen this time, is our Holy Father will prepare and issue what's called an apostolic exhortation. It's a teaching document. And boy, did we have, when we did the one in the early 1990s, there was a synod on formation of seminarians and priests. Well, that teaching document, called Pastoris Dabo Vobis, changed actually the whole approach in many cases to seminary formation. So these documents over time can have a great effect on the day-to-day working of the church. So we're hoping that, I would say, in the next year to two, that we'll have such a teaching document. A second thing that occurred was in December, actually in November and December, at our priest council meetings, we began local conversation. And it was really inspiring to hear our priests talk about having a pastoral heart and what it means to bring new energy to the things we're already doing. It's not so much new programs, it's a new enthusiasm and a new energy is what the new evangelization is all about.
So briefly, some of these discussions actually began at the recent Bishops' Conference.
That's right. That's exactly right. What happened is, in fact, the Bishops' Conference was a great follow-through, and two major areas at the Bishops' Conference in November, which fits this, is the teaching document on preaching, and then the call, a much smaller document, but the call for renewal of the sacrament of reconciliation or penance.
Now, I've read a lot about that preaching document, the first in 30 years.
Yeah, there was one, it was 1982 that the first document called Fulfilled in the Hearing was issued by the bishops on preaching. This one has a great title. It's called Preaching the Mystery of Faith, the Sunday Homily. And I have a quote here, and I'd like to read it if I can.
And we'll put it on the screen.
Great. Here, this comes from the document on preaching the Sunday homily. It says, the ultimate goal of proclaiming the gospel is to lead people into a loving and intimate relationship with the Lord, a relationship that forms the character of their persons and guides them in living out their faith. An effective homily should show the faithful just how much the Son of God loved them in taking our human flesh upon himself. See, the homily really is meant to make Christ present. And that's something that's going to require, on my part and on all of our priests and deacons, first of all, an expression of joy to show that we really are seeking to be holy. And secondly, diligence. We got to prepare. And so in a sense, a good homilist is a good student. So I'm excited about the potential for this teaching document.
Now, the second movement involves the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and Cardinal Dolan spoke very eloquently about it.
He did, and he did at the Synod too. And he talked about, and I think you and I would agree on this, that the need to be a humble church begins with our own recognition of our own weakness. We have, I would say, in general, a society has two faults, either presumption or despair. Presumption means I don't need forgiveness, I'm perfect. Or how could God live without me, so to speak. Despair is of a different sort. It's saying, I'm so bad, nobody can help me.
You go from one extreme to the other.
Exactly. And I think we're in an age in which probably there's a temptation for the first one, that we just have such a high esteem of ourselves, and we should know of our dignity, but that we forget that in weakness we need to confess our sins. The sacrament is really announcing the good news of Jesus Christ in His mercy. And we all need that. Well,
a good example of that, and I've heard you talk about it, was the men's conference last year.
Oh, there were... I was blown away, as they say, with the number of men who came to the men's conference and received the sacrament of reconciliation. There were about 20 priests, and we were all busy for darn near the whole hour. Read, in addition to that, at the end of our bishops' conference, we have a holy hour. This is in Baltimore. And at that conference, priests from religious communities come and are available to hear the confessions of bishops. And boy, I find that to be a great joy. And then here locally, the Passionist Fathers at their monastery during Advent had a holy hour in which our priests could come, and I joined our priests to receive the sacrament of reconciliation. And then again, as we begin Lent, we have that process in which the Dominican Fathers are inviting us next month to come to St. Louis Bertrand for the same. We've been doing that for about 3 years.
A lot of viewers and listeners, I've got to believe, are wondering now, who can hear the confessions of a priest or a bishop or an archbishop?
Sure, and it's really any priest in good standing who has the faculties to hear confessions, and often this is where religious communities have been of great assistance in making available the sacrament of reconciliation. But each priest and each bishop is called to have a regular confessor, someone whom we go to regularly. And boy, I don't know what I would do without the sacrament of reconciliation.
Archbishop, the segment has gone by very rapidly. We will take a break here. When we come back, Archbishop Kurtz will be talking with one of the organizers of the 2013 Men's Conference here on Conversations.